Hello, everybody. It's me, Sabs, and welcome to the next episode, long overdue, of Sabs Solo Single Saga. I am your host, Sabrina, and we are going to be getting into the thick of it today, okay? I feel like lately a lot of my podcasts have been talking about being solo and single in a very broad and vague territory and not really applying it specifically towards living in LA. So today we're going to focus on that. But first, let me give you a little life update. I stated in my last episode that I was going to hold myself more accountable and really make every Sunday my podcast day. Literally in February, I was like, okay, March is going to be my month. It's the start of spring, at least I thought it would be in California. I loved St. Patrick's Day also. I had planned a trip to go to Chicago, and I was literally going to make March like the party month. Okay, because if you don't know, for those of you that have never been to St. Patrick's Day in Chicago, number one, it is crazy. There's no other words to describe it. It is a little bit on the frat, collegey side of life for partying, but I haven't done it in such a long time, and I haven't been back to St. Patrick's Day since pre-pandemic, pre-COVID, because last time that it was, last year it was still a little bit like iffy, I would say, because of the Delta variant, and then the year before it was canceled, and then the year before that, so 2021, that was when people were debating about closing the bars, so there weren't that many people going out, and I actually was sick with COVID. Little did I know that it was COVID, but I was sick, so I couldn't attend. So I was excited, okay? Also, fun fact, if you ever do decide to go to St. Patrick's Day and celebrate in Chicago, yes, they do dye the river green. It is environmentally friendly, though. You can research that. I'm all about being environmentally friendly. That's one of my big spiels in life. But they also celebrate on that Saturday prior to St. Patrick's Day. So, for example, this year, St. Patrick's Day, which is why I was so excited, was on a Friday. Okay, so I want to say it was like the 17th or something of that nature. So that means that this year in Chicago, it was like on the 10th, which is really early, like prematurely early, but at the same time, like I'm not going to say no to having 2 weekends of wearing green and being belligerent and really just having a hoot. Like, that's the best way of saying it, and celebrating 1/5 of my ancestors, okay? Just like everybody else. Also, the Chicago scene, and this is where we get very LA centered, okay? I have been trying to go out to bars more often. I don't really drink heavily, and I'm a very like big social drinker now. When I say like big social drinker, that is really the only occasion I do drink. If you're watching my video, you're like, girl, you have a bar cart. And I've talked about this before. I only do it when I have friends over, and I really know my limit now. I'm like typically 3 drinks only. Like, I'm a lightweight, okay? And I don't want my next day to be ruined or impacted really that much by my choices that I make in consumption. That's just not my vibe. Yeah, there's sometimes that I'm like, oh, I just need a good day of having fun, but that doesn't, like, for me, it's just knowing my limits now, and that's something that, like, my friend group I have now, super fun. That being said, so yes, I've been going to the bars, little tangent right there, but being safe, okay, safe, having fun, going to the bars more often. And it's just one of those things that, like, people put this online, and they've said it before, and I can attest to this, especially since I'm on the dating apps. The men in the LA area compared to the Chicago area, like, I am a 10 in Chicago. We'll say 9. But, 9, 10 in Chicago. The men love me there. I get attention. Here in LA, like, the only male attention I'll get is, like, today I was at Target buying stuff for my hoo-ha because she's not doing well right now. And so I was buying medication for that, and that's the only type of interaction I will get from men is when I'm not you know, seeking it, desiring it, because if she's itching, why the hell am I going to be talking to you? It's just like, that is quintessential LA right there compared to Chicago. Like sometimes I just miss like the male like gaze being respectful and in the right time, right place, right mindset. So I was very excited. But for those of you that are living in LA, especially like the last couple of weeks, there's been a bug going around. And since I've been a little bit more going out there and stuff, that meant that naturally I got the bug because my immune system's just great. This cold that is going around, folks, okay? Number one, you have the LA rain, which is like shitty in itself, okay? There's a week where I think it rained every single day. They said, and mind you, I take with a grain of salt the news that I get sometimes on TikTok, but at the same time, like it's giving me a broad span. They're saying that there is more rain in LA than Seattle this year. That is ridiculous, okay? There's a reason why, like, my depression is not, she's coming back a little bit. She's like peeking through the holes just a tad. It's bad. And so, because in lieu of the rain and because of it, now allergies are, I guess, worse because they're spewing and pollen's going everywhere, which I didn't know about as a Midwesterner. It's usually I have that really like, here's all the pollen, you're gonna die for a while. May, because it's snowing until like May 5th. So it was a shock with all the rain. They said this is the first time like everybody's having, more allergies coming out. And then on top of it, there's this bug. Oh my gosh. This had me out for like, I would say a good solid 2 weeks straight, which, mind you, great for the wallet. Amazing for the wallet. Because if like LA, and people will complain about this, but it is true. The drinks are expensive. And now that I've been here for 2 years, I definitely am jaded by it, or unfazed, you could say. Like, there's this place that I go to, Happy Hour. Love it, in Santa Monica. And I think it's a great deal if the the cocktail is like $10. I'm like, what a deal. What a great happy hour. When I could say, a place in Chicago or even Minnesota a couple years ago, and still right now to this day, I could have a regular cocktail for $10, and maybe on happy hour it's like $7. Mind you, with inflation, times are changing, and I would rather have one really good cocktail that I'm sipping on and that's aesthetically pleasing, and also like where the men that I desire are. My girlfriends and I were actually talking about this the other day. Which ironically I just got a text message. I thought this was on Do Not Disturb. But regardless, so I want to talk about, this is a quintessential LA thing, is knowing your neighborhoods, okay? And knowing where each type of men frequents neighborhoods. So my girlfriends and I have vetted out bars that we're like, okay, if we're feeling on the fratty side of life, like we're West Side girlies, like Jameson's, they have great like, I don't want to say halftime deals, but they have great happy hour deals where everything is half off. Sometimes like double check with your server because they will be like, oh, sorry, happy hour, it's not happening, even though it is in that allotted time frame. Girl, I have this turned off. I apologize. I do not know why she's doing her thing. I literally have asked you to do not disturb. Anyways, this is the joy of like, this was also an update. I have friends now. But so we vetted out. Jameson's is a place where if you're like, hey, like, maybe you're just looking for a little bit of action. You're gonna find your fratty guys get great deals during happy hour when happy hour is happening, whatever that might be. That is a great place to go to. Misfits. That is where one of the places where we had this thing that it's like, okay, yes, it's a tad more expensive than what we would like, but the quality of men at this establishment is what we are desiring in a partner. Like, they have jobs, they are dressing well, they're respectful. They're like, oh my gosh, you're beautiful three women that are standing instead of sitting at the bar. Like, let me take my seat and give it to you, and we're going to have a conversation. Like, when was the last time that I can't even remember a last time that somebody actually gave a seat to me and then had a conversation too. Mind you, not everybody's single there, but it's great conversation. And I I cannot stress enough, you never know the connections and the conversations that you can have and what that might lead into. And I think that's a great mindset that I've been doing now that I've been going out a little bit more, is to remember, like, okay, here's my goals for the night. My goal is, okay, here's what I would like, how many drinks I would like to drink. Like, this is the limit that I'm giving myself. Money too. Like, this is the amount of money. Do I want to be Ubering place to place? Or do I want to stay in my local area that I feel comfortable walking 4 or 5 blocks, okay, from my place? I'm a walker in LA. I'm sorry. It's always going to be a thing. Do I like the vibes going over there? Do I want to be like, okay, yes, I'll come for one drink only because it's just not my scene. There are some places that my friends will be like, okay, we're going to start here and then we're going to go to the next place. I'll meet you at the next place. Or maybe I only do happy hour at one of the places and I say, it was great catching up with you guys. I'm going to head out this way with a different group of friends. It's great. I love it. Also, like, I think back, I was 5 years ago, and even a little bit too, there's this pressure that's like, tonight could be the night that you are going to meet your soulmate, which I love the hyping of and the fantasizing, but I also think that that leads to false expectations, because then it puts that pressure when you're at the bar and you're like, I'm going to go into jungle mode. And when I say jungle mode, like, you are that, like, think of Mean Girls, okay? And you're scoping out the bar and you're like, I'm in my lioness hunt mode, and which gazelle am I going to prey on, okay? That is dating, especially in LA. Like, you are looking and then you're seeing women as competitors, and that should not be the case. I don't like it. For me, now I'm going in with zero expectations other than the ones that I have set on myself that are realistic. If I have great conversation with somebody, regardless of their relationship status, and I'm gauging based off of the conversation and the flow that we're having, that it's fun. You never, like, you, especially in LA, and this is something that, like, we should capitalize off of. Regardless of your sex, regardless of your sexual orientation, have fun, talk to people, have conversations. Like, that is the whole point of being at a bar. If you're going to just sit on your phone, go somewhere else. Be at home. I'm sorry. I like it, and I get that it's awkward at times, especially if you're that first friend that's meeting up with people. Maybe it's the first time that you're meeting up with this new group of friends. I get that it can be awkward. Talk to the bartender then. Or just sit in silence. And I know it can be scary as hell. Like, I have those moments that I'm like, oh, I should go to my phone. And then I'm like, you know what? What am I missing? I'm not missing anything on my phone right now. And in order for me to have something to talk about, I need to be present in the moment. I have nothing to post about if I'm not doing anything. So, like, that's the whole point of being on your phone, right? Right? So that's my little tangent. And I know that a lot of people, and I've done this myself too, like, I will try to go to bars by myself just to push myself out there, especially when it's like I'm trying to meet new people, or maybe there's a bar that I want to go to that my friends it's not in their price range, and that's totally fine, and I'm feeling like I want to treat myself, or it's not the food that they like. That doesn't mean that you can't go by yourself. And if you have that inclination of bringing your phone or getting your phone out, what I've like tried to think about is, like, I'll bring a book with me, but I've never opened it. I'm gonna be honest, I've never opened that book. I bring it with as like a extra thing. I'm like, do, because then it can gauge like how I'm feeling. Like, do I feel like I have to socially unengage right now in this public space to the point that I'm going to create this barricade, potential like blockade barricade by me reading a book? And then I can think, okay, if I'm not saying yes to a book, then why would I even bring my phone out? Unless it's for emergency situations, obviously. So I think that's really good, especially like in LA. We're all about documenting things, and I love to document every now and then. I think that's really great, but I've been definitely attempting to prioritize living in the moment. And my girlfriends, even, we were talking about this yesterday. Like, we did a chill midweek hangout, not midday, midweek hangout, which I highly recommend because it definitely, I think, especially for myself as somebody that works from home on a Monday through Friday schedule, I have been tending to go a little bit more wild and extravagant on the weekends because I'm like, oh my God, people. And then I'm becoming like, I have to take Monday to just decompress and be like, okay, that was so many people. I saw like 100 people. I talked to them. I had all this energy, and now I'm drained. I am drained. You can hear it in my voice too. Like, I am drained. And I don't know if you guys are like this too, but when I'm sick, especially like I was saying, 2 weeks, because that cough was just terrible. I have this whole newfound perspective on life, okay? And I want to do everything. Like, I get FOMO to the max because you're seeing everybody on social media doing all these fun things. You're like, I wish I could be there, but also like it would not be fun. So I'm like trying, there's somebody screaming outside. I'm really just trying, like, finding those limits, I guess, and finding that healthy in between of hyping the weekends up, but also finding fun little things to celebrate in between. I think that's a great thing too, because sometimes that pressure that you put on the weekends, then it leads to kind of like when you're going to the bar, what I was talking about when it comes to like, okay, like tonight's the night I'm gonna hook up with a guy. Like, it leads to disappointment, and I think sometimes, and false expectations for the weekend. And especially like when I was saying, like in LA, we like to document things. We're seeing everybody else doing something that might be like way more fabulous at a red carpet event or influencer event, and we're not there. And I'm like, well, I feel like I did nothing this weekend. Like, how am I capitalizing off of this? It's okay. It is okay to do the things that you want to do. It is okay not to go out every single weekend in the same fashion. If that is your thing, have fun, but live in the moment. That is like quintessential. I think if anything after the pandemic, because we were during that whole time in our like hibernation mode, and I think spring is a similar fashion, especially for us having been, it's not like it wasn't casual rain. This was like monsoon rain happening for the past 2 months. Okay, so we're finally seeing people again and going out. Celebrate the small shit. Sorry for cussing, but celebrate the small shit, because why not? This is such a great city, especially in LA, to use the area and the opportunities that we have to our advantage. If you've been hearing too, because I want to get into like celebrating the small stuff a little bit more. If you've been hearing notifications, because you're probably like, girl, what is happening? No, I don't know why Do Not Disturb is not working on my laptop, and I apologize for that. And I think that's why I'm like a little sidetracked today. I have some tips because as you guys know, I have been actively trying to make more friends. And part of that is actually because of not putting pressure on myself, setting goals, and really vocalizing what I want. So we're going to go into this a little bit. If you remember when I first was having this whole, say, like mini crisis of realizing, hey, I'm going to be like solo, single in LA, I reached out to the friends that I did have. And mind you, like, when I want to be very clear, like, I did have a support system when I moved here originally 2 years ago. And when it shifted, and this is this is going to be your quintessential LA part. I have for myself, sometimes I struggle with opening up. And that's something that, actively working on with different mental health professionals, and also like vocalizing that. And I think that's one of the things, is learning how to vocalize how you are feeling. Now, and this isn't saying like trauma dump the hell out of people, because that is also a big no-no, especially now that we're having these active conversations on mental health. We need to realize and gauge when it's the right moment to talk about it, who it's the right moment to disclose that information to, and when. And everybody's going to have different things, and I'm not saying like, hey, like, if you're feeling like something's heavy on your chest, to keep that in because it's X, Y, and Z's birthday party. Maybe you just take a friend aside and say, hey, like, I'm not in the hottest place right now. Is it possible that we can set up a lunch sometime so that we can talk about this? And, or, what, too? Bathroom sessions for gossiping. Quintessential girl shit, okay? That is the best. Make sure that you're talking and vocalizing about it. So during right before the holidays, when I knew like, hey, this new life change was happening, I vocalized it. And that wasn't like my only story in life going on. Was it like a predominant one? Because it was like shocking that like all of a sudden this big life change was happening, 100%. But it was something that allowed me, by vocalizing and saying, hey, I'm looking for a larger support system. If you know of people that are interested in walking, which I know sounds like so mundane, but like the hot girl walks, that is the shit. Okay? I live for it. So I was like, if you know people that love to go on hot girl walks, drink, have fun, go out, but also love to chill and be in our sweatpants and just gossip, and not gossip, but just talk shit, whatever, let me know, because I want to be connected to those people. And it happened over time. It's one of those things too, I think, that we forget as adult friendships, how to make friends and how friendships form. Because we just think it's like, okay, all of a sudden, boom, like that. And yes, it does happen sometimes that all of a sudden, yes, you're put into that group chat and you're like, holy shit, it's happening. I'm in girl world now. But other times, like for me, realistically, this probably took about a good 4 or 5 months. But it was because I went to events that I went to a party of somebody that I kind of knew that was a mutual friend. I put myself out there. And I was like, you know what? I've talked to these girls. Yes, my anxiety is right now like I don't know if I can fit in, but I know 3-4 people in here. Let's expand that to 8. Let's just double it out of the 20. So not even like, I don't need to know every single person here, but let me try to do maybe like a quarter or half. And once I got into the groove of it, it was super fun, and everybody was like, we like this chick. And it can happen for you too. Like, you deserve to find that community and that support, just like I do. In the same fashion too, I'm one of those people that I also want to still, just because I am making and maintaining friends, that does not mean that I still should not be actively having conversations outside with other people. Because I think sometimes there's like this whole loyalty complex, and I struggled with it a long time too. Like, I think about like my girlfriends in high school. I love those girls. I've been friends with them for 15 years, and it's like a ride or die mentality. But sometimes ride or die mentalities can be very toxic and lead to lack of boundaries, at least from what I've seen and what I've experienced. And it can lead to actually becoming more isolating, because it's like, hey, you're not going to talk to this person because X, Y, and Z doesn't like them, because they stole, let's say, like, I don't know, their piece of pizza one time. It can be very little things like that. And mind you, I'm all about blind loyalty to an extent. Okay? I love to get the full scope of things, and if somebody cannot respect me on that, that's on them. I am always going to hear a woman's truth out because I think that is women's voices need to be heard. I and that is something that I will blindly, I'm like full throttle in. But when it comes to the mundane things, like, oh, like I just don't like their personality, that's on me to gauge, like, hey, just because you don't like vibe with that does not mean that I cannot vibe with that. If that is literally the only reason, like that's up for me to decide. And if you're going to get pissed, then that's on you. I don't like the us versus them mentality when it comes to girl groups, and that's something that I've expressed now going, into different relationships. I'm not going to be like, well, here's my expectations for me joining the group or for me being friends with you. No, I'm going to be friends with individual people as well as collectively. And I think that sometimes too, like, you just have to go into the thick of it. And I don't want to be like, don't think about it, but just have fun. Like, if you're being your genuine self, either they're going to dig it or they're not. And then you go on with life. Either way, whatever happens, happens. That's kind of like the mindset. Because I think sometimes, especially for my anxious girlies like myself, sometimes we overthink. And we're like I think about my insecurities, for example. Like, I tend, especially in LA, it's hard sometimes when I am the only plus size girl in the group. And when I say group, I mean this like collectively, like at a party. And so then I'm like, okay, so like how the hell are we gonna relate? Because it's like, okay, let's talk about guys. Well, honey, like I can't like yes, now that I'm getting into like my baddie era, um, getting more attention because I'm putting myself out there more. But when I was projecting my insecurities, I was like, oh, how am I going to have any commonalities with her when she's like hot, confident, she knows her shit, and I'm over here like drabby McDrab? No. Like, work on your inner self first. This isn't me trying to be like a fucking therapist because that, I can't do that. But by working on myself first and realizing like, yes, like validating who I am as a person, knowing what my likes and dislikes are, being able to vocalize it, honey, it's just been fun. It's been fun, okay? And it reflects, and I think it's one of those like domino effects then, or snowballing, that's like, okay, like I'm figuring out where I fit in friend group wise in different places here, and then that also reflects then on finding a creative circle here in LA as well. And I do want to get into that. I think in my next episode is just like making friends in the creative industry, because that's a complexity in itself. And then finding those coworkers too, which when you're working from home, if everybody's around the country, that's a little bit hard. But there's always going to be different dynamics, and how you handle them, and even your mindset, like that's going to impact everything too. So overall, like the overarching theme is like just having fun, celebrating, like, and I want to go into this a little bit more, like celebrating small moments, small wins. Quintessential LA thing too is I feel like there's always a friend in town. Somebody's friend is in town, and I love that. I love when am like making a friendship with somebody and they're like, you know what? My friend of 15 plus years is coming into town and you would get along with them so well. Let's all go to brunch, or let's all go on a walk together. I'm like, that to me is the nicest freaking compliment that I can get. Being like, hey, I think that like I want to introduce my longtime friend to this short time friend that I think is going to, mesh very well. Like, it just like I don't be like, it warms my heart, but it does, and it just gives me And I like selfishly too, like an opportunity to do things in LA that I'm like, oh, that's so touristy, and finally do it with people that have this whole gaze of LA being like the prettiest thing on the earth. You can hear my stomach. I'm so sorry. There's a lot of just background noise today. But we're powering through this episode, you guys. But it's so refreshing to not only like feel like you're in this you how do I say this, like you feel like you have this privilege to be in this person's life and to see a different facet of them. And then in addition, you get to meet another person that who knows what's going to happen. Maybe you're going to meet up, and continue the friendship because X, Y, and Z happens in life. I love that. Like, do not limit yourself to being like, okay, I'm only like, everybody's like East Side, West Side, like LA. No, because you never know when an opportunity arises that all of a sudden you're going to be like, okay, like I have to find a place in Silver Lake because I found a job, or I'm going to become a Burbank girl. Like, I really hope that doesn't happen, but you never know. And because you're like, oh my gosh, like, yes, it does suck driving an hour and a half, but there's those halfway places too, okay? That's why LA is so big, because they've created halfway places in between. And like, why limit? I just don't get it. Yes, is it not gonna be like 100% maybe functional and the most, I don't want to say functional, but the most pragmatic, and maybe you're only going to see each other once a month, but okay, like if you're valuing the friendship, why the heck not, and it's also fun with like on the side of tourists too. It's also great to see tourists and like those friends that are coming to visit seeing everything with rose-colored glasses with LA. I think that's a very humbling experience, because sometimes we can be like very like, fuck LA, and like, oh my gosh, look at that, how pretty, it's a city with poop on the street. I'm like, yeah, I guess we can be excited about that, stuff like that, are like, oh my gosh, the ocean, and they're like frolicking and running. I'm like, I take for granted a lot of things here, and it's a very humbling experience, and I'm so happy that I can meet those people and hear their narratives and just have freaking fun with them, So that's my little spiel episode. It was very tangenty. I think that's also why I've been struggling with my episodes lately. When I've been attempting to record, I'm like, what do I have to say? Like, in between trying to hack along, and I'm like, you know what? Again, boundaries. Like, I took a time to step away because I physically could barely talk. But I'm so happy to be back. Next time we're going to talk about industry, because I think that's something that's even more quintessential LA. As a fashion photographer, like my relationship with my clients and models, like where do we draw the line in terms of friendships? So yeah, I think that's going to be a great conversation. As always, if you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, let me know. I will work on not saying as much. You can make a counter too for this. I'm sure it will be great. But as always, thank you so much for listening to this podcast. I hope this really has helped serve as like just a friendly, gentle reminder that you are doing well, that you are putting in effort. Take time to celebrate yourself and to celebrate others. And I'm so freaking proud of you guys. And thank you again for listening to the episode. And until next time, bye.